All right, I will say good morning. Good morning. Let us begin. Begin by thanking all of our sponsors. So thank our TALMUD Torah sponsors for the month of Iyar. Stephen Teri Czinn for dedicating all of his Shirman Drushos this month in honor of their grandson Matan Shmuel Aharon. We hope that in the merit of our TALMUD Torah, he will grow to be an incredible Ben Torah Me'av Esrim Shanim Tovos. To thank our week of learning sponsors, Hayley Ari Lichterman, in memory of Hayley's mother, Leah Bas Reuven Meir. We hope that in the merit of our TALMUD Torah, the neshama will have an aliyah and the family a neshama. We thank an anonymous sponsor for dedicating all the Shirman Drushos this month, Le'ilui Nishmos, Sarah Dina Bas Elimelech Zichron Livracha, on the occasion of her 10th Yahrtzeit, and Le'ilui Nishmas Moshe Aaron Alter Ben Yosef Binyamin Zichron Livracha. We hope that in the merit of our TALMUD Torah, the neshama will have an aliyah and the family a nechama. Daf Yomi today is sponsored by Jacob Milner and Josh Rosenbloom in honor of Jeremy Lasson's 40th birthday. Where's Jeremy? Yeah, when you reach that age, it's hard to get up. I understand. That's what happens. Jeremy, I think, was a little bit under the weather as well. Okay, we wish, and also Jacob and Julie Blumenfeld wishing a happy 40th birthday to our dear friend Jeremy Lasson, and a thank you to all you do for the kehila. We wish Jeremy and Yahrtzeit Hashem a beautiful, uplifting, and meaningful birthday with incredible koach and resolve ad me'av ve'esrim shanim tovos. Beautiful. Well, so with that, let us begin. Another ridiculous day in Masechah Sotah, right? An incredible and overwhelming and beautiful day. So we'll say, watch this Gemara. So we left off yesterday. Today's Daf is Lamed Hey 35. We left off. Excuse me. We left off on Lamed Daled Amud Beis V'Sham Achiman Shishai B'Tamai. So that is 2, 4, 6, 8. 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 23 lines. Not 24 lines, maybe 25 lines. Up from the bottom. So I'll say, so remember again, the Torah over here, the Gemara going into great detail regarding the episode of the Meraglim. So the Pasuk says, V'sham Achimon Shishai B'Tamai. So remember again, the Yilidei Anak. These were the great giants, right? The giants in Eretz Canaan. So Achiman, why is his name Achiman? Miyuman Sheva Echav. He was the strongest of the brothers. Shishai, why Shishai? Shemesim Esaras Kishechasos. Ultimately, again, I will say, he made the earth like pits. Meaning what? That he was so large and so heavy that when he would walk, he would literally create pits with his steps. Talmai, Shemesim Esaras Talamim Tlamim. Again, same idea. When he would walk, he would create furrows. Davra Acher, Achiman, Bana Anas. So we'll say Achiman built the city of Anas. Shishai Bana Alash built the city of Alash. Talmai Bana Talmush. Okay. Yilidei Anak. What does it mean, the Yilidei Anak? Now, Lidak literally means the sons of giants. Shema'anikin Chama B'Kamasan. So it says an incredible play on words. That they were so tall that when they stood, it looked like they were wearing the sun as a necklace. Shama'anikin chama b'kamasan. An anak is like a choker, right? It looked like they are wearing the sun as a necklace. The Chevron, Sheva Shanam Nivnasa. Now we'll say Chevron, the city of Chevron, was built in 7 years. My Nivnasa. What does it mean, Nivnasa? Ilema Nivnasa Mamish, if you think it means actually building. Efshar Adam Bone Bayis Libno Katan Koden Libno Gadol. Could it be that a father builds a city for his youngest son, before he builds a city for his older son? After all, Dechsev Ubenecham Kush Umitzrayim. The rest of the pasuk is Uput Ukinaan. So we'll say, so just understand over here. So Kinaan was one of the sons of Cham. Cham built the city of Hebron for his son Kinaan. Now, at the same time, so Cham also built the city of Tzoan for his son Mitzrayim. So I'll say, so here's what's interesting over here. What's interesting is that it sounds like, if you read the pasuk of Nivnasa as being built, it sounds like Hebron was built before Tzoan Mitzrayim. Now, the reason why that doesn't make sense, right? Is because at the end of the day, that would mean that Cham built a city for his younger son, Canaan, before he built a city for his older son, Mitzrayim. And just in general, that wasn't done. So how do you understand the word Nivnasa? Rabbi say, get ready for this. So the Gemara says, rather, what does Nivnasa mean? Ela Shaisa Mavuna Alechem Meshivatzoan. Hebron was 7 times more fertile, right? 7 times. So that's the pshat in the pasuk. Hebron sheva shanim nivnasa. Hebron was 7 times more fertile than the city of Tzoan. And I will say, now, why is that a remarkable statement? Listen to this. We'll say the rockiest area in Eretz Yisrael is Hebron. Rockiest area is Hebron. Now watch this. Now the Kivri Beis Shli, we'll say that's why was Hebron chosen as a burial place? Let's remember again, choosing a place as a burial area means that what? What are you giving up? What are you giving up? Farming. Now giving up farming land in agricultural society is big stuff. So the area you're going to want to give up is pretty much area that really can't be farmed. So Hebron is one of the rockiest areas in Eretz Yisrael. Right? Now, I contrast that with Mitzrayim. Jeremy, happy birthday. Happy birthday. Baruch Hashem. All of your chaverim sponsored the daf in your honor. The Rosenblooms, the Milners, the Blumenfelds. So shkoyach. And by the way, now you can never hide your age again either. I'm sorry if you're giving that up. Mazel tov, mazel tov. All right, so let's go later. So back to the Gemara. So listen to this. Poor guy. He's never coming again. That's it. All right, mazel tov, Jeremy. Really, mazel tov. We'll say so what happens? So here you have Hebron being 7 times more fertile, ultimately again than Mitzrayim. Now we'll say, now watch this. Now Mitzrayim was considered to be the most fertile country, the most fertile area. Furthermore, and I will say, in Mitzrayim itself, Tzoan was the most fertile. So Mitzrayim is the most fertile country on the face of the earth, right? And in Mitzrayim, Tzoan is the most fertile area. Dechsiv ki hayu b'Tzoan sarav v'avilu haki Hebron mavuna echa mishiv b'Tzoan. So I'm saying, now watch this. But yet what we're saying is, Hebron is 7 times more fertile than Tzoan. Now I'm saying, now here's, right, so that's what's interesting, right? So remember, Mitzrayim is the most fertile land on the earth. Tzoan is the most fertile area of Mitzrayim. And yet Hebron is 7 times more fertile than Tzoan, which is in Mitzrayim. But what's remarkable about that is that Hebron itself is not even the most fertile area, right? Because what do we say about Hebron? It's rocky. Right? So because it's rocky, again, it's not like it was a big agricultural community. So the Yushti Gemara says, 1 second, the Hebron Trashimov, is that true? Hebron is rocky. V'haksiv v'himi kates arba'im shana. So we'll say, what's after 40 years? So we'll say, Avshalom said to the king, I will say, remember again, this is when Avshalom says to the king, the rest of the passage is, El Chana v'Avshalom es nidri asher nadarti l'Hashem b'Hebron. So Avshalom says to his father David HaMelech, I'm going to go and ultimately again fulfill the vow I made to Hashem. I will say, what happened? V'amrav Avya v'yitim Rabbi Bar Chana shehalach lahavi kvasim mechevron. What did Avshalom do? He went to bring sheep from Hebron. Then I will say, sheep require what? Grazing area. Grazing area requires soil, right? Requires pastures. So obviously the Gemara says, V'tanya elim Moav kivasim Hebron. And everyone knows again, the best rams come from Moav, and the best sheep come from Hebron. The best sheep come from Hebron, which tells you that Hebron has plenty of pasture, to which the Gemara says no. Mina aidi dekli sha'ara avdaraya v'shamei kinyana. So let's listen to this. The Gemara says, here's the difference. Dafka, because Hebron is not agricultural area, therefore it's not farmed. So what do you have? You have a lot of free growing grass. Rashi says, last 2 Rashis over here. Last 3 Rashis. Dekli sha'ara afar shot trashim dak v'kalosh umuatu umitol kach lo yachashim. Because Hebron was rocky, the soil wasn't really great for agriculture, so therefore it wasn't farmed. Va'avdaraya, therefore what happens? So what does grow in Hebron is grass. Well, grass is fantastic pasture for the sheep. V'shamin kinyana, hamiknat son shekein derech hatzon lashbiach be'eretz yivesha u'trash miyosim eretz lacha. So I'll say, for whatever the reason, the grass that often grows in uncultivated soil is apparently the most nutritious for sheep. So interestingly enough, Hebron, which was rocky, did not have agricultural land, was not farmed, had a lot of free growing grass, which was great for the creation of sheep. So it was a popular shepherding spot. That's why the best sheep came from Hebron. Incredible. Say fine. So back now to the Meraglim. They came back, right? They came back ultimately again from spying out the land. Says the Gemara, Vayelchu. So top of Lamed Hey. Vayelchu vayavo. So we'll say, so the pasuk says, right? They went and they came. The Torah itself equates their going and their coming. Ma'bia be'itzara. Remember again, this reflects the motif of this Gemara, which is that at the end of the day, the Meraglim went with the intent to sabotage this mission. So I just want to point that out. Remember again, this is the opinion of the Gemara. I mentioned this already in yesterday's daf. Not everyone subscribes to this same idea. Right? There are plenty of opinions that hold that the Meraglim were good men who just simply got lost. They got lost. The Gemara's understanding is, no, their intention was to sabotage the entire time. So the Gemara says, so Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Rashbi, we'll say it's exciting. No, isn't it exciting to see Rashbi a couple of days before Lag BaOmer? Very exciting. He's like Kiviyachal, like he's popping his head into the base medrash. Right, guys, exciting times coming. So Rashbi says, Makish halicha lebia. Ultimately, we equate the going to the coming. Ma bia be'itzara, just like when they went, their intention was to sabotage. Af halicha be'itzara. So too when they came back, ultimately again, their intention was to sabotage. So again, Rashi says this explicitly. Look at Rashi. Af halichasan be'itzara shemetchila lahotzi diba niskavnu. I will say it's hard. It's hard to say, right? And it's really hard to understand how it is. I will say because it doesn't make any sense. Here, you're being actively guided by God. Being actively guided by God. I also remember, I just want to point out, you can't claim that Lamaisa, it's Moshe Rabbeinu who decided to go ahead and lead you to this land. Why can't you claim that? I will say, remember again, what was their GPS system? What was their navigation system? It was the cloud, right? It was the cloud, it was the fire. They're being actively led by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So it's abundantly clear that Hashem wants them to come into this land. So it is overwhelming to think that their intention, their kavanah, see, it's so much better to understand the Meraglim story as good man gone bad. Right? That's okay, it happens. But to think that the intention was to sabotage from the beginning, it's hard to wrap your head around that. So let's say, Elamai, if you go with the idea that they were looking to preserve their positions of power, Shabbosai tells us how intoxicating power is. And how once you have it, it is almost impossible to let go of it. And the lengths that people will go to in order to hold on to their power, even good, righteous men, essentially actively waging war against God. Because that's what this is. By trying to undermine this mission, it's a war against HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because that's who you're fighting. You're not fighting the Kananim or anyone else. HaKadosh Baruch Hu told you to go in. Now you're waging war against God. That is the intoxicating grip that power often has upon an individual. Incredible. So I'll say what happens. So they come back. So now we're going through the Meraglim story. So they come back. They say now, seemingly they're talking to Moshe. They're talking to Moshe, but of course everyone is gathered around. So they tell Moshe, Banu ala aretz, we come to the land. I will say, so just to point out, how do the Meraglim start? Banu ala aretz asher shalachtanu, v'gam zavas chalav udvashi v'zeh perya. They say to Moshe, the land indeed flows with milk and honey. It does. It absolutely flows with milk and honey. And here's the fruit. But then they say, Efes ki az ha'am. But then they say what? Efes. What's Efes? So I'll say, Efes is that word. But. It flows with milk and honey, but the nations who live there are incredibly strong and we cannot overcome them. So it says the Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan, Mishum Rabbi Meir, was an incredible statement. Kol lashon hara, she'in bo davar emes betchilaso, in miskayim b'sofo. It will say, Here's the key. It's good to know. Here's the key to speaking effective Lashon Hara. Right? Lashon Hara only stands if there's a kernel of truth in it. Right? In other words, we'll say, we all know this. Sometimes you hear something, and you know it's a lie. Right? I know it's not true. It's just something about it. Something that has no element of MS in it. It doesn't stand. It doesn't stand. So if it's complete sheker, right? Like they say, sheker ein lo raglayim, right? Sheker has no feet. Right? Sheker has no basis to stand on. So the only way Lashon Hara takes hold is if there is some element of truth in it. And I will say, so where do you see that from? The Meraglim. Right? I will say why? Because remember again, I want to point out, the Meraglim don't start out by saying, terrible, sky's fall. What do they start out by saying? What do they start out by saying? It flows with milk and honey. It flows with milk. True. But I will say, once they say that, then that gives them the entranceway to go into Lashon Hara. And by the way, the people buy it hook, line, and sinker, right? They buy it. Why? Because there was MS in it. We'll say it's such an incredible idea. Vayas Kalev Esa'am. So we'll say, so Kalev, now we'll say literally translate, the way we read it is, Kalev silenced the people. So the Gemara says, Vayas Kalev Esa'am al Moshe. Amar Rabba, we'll say, what does this mean? She'esisan b'dvarim. Now we'll say, listen to this. That Kalev actually riled up the people. Okay, now watch this story. So we'll say, because here's how the story of the Meraglim unfolded. We'll say, first thing that happened in the Meraglim is someone. Now, who it is, Vayisapru, they told, here's all we know. We know who it wasn't. It wasn't Yoshua, and it wasn't Kalev. Was it the other 10 in unison, some representation of the other 10, whatever happened, what we'll call the group of the Meraglim, they tell over to Moshe, it is Eres Zavas Chalav Udvash, absolutely flows with milk and honey. But, Efes, Ki Az Ha'ama Yoshe Bar Sarim B'Suros, the people are strong, the cities are fortified, and we cannot go in. So I'll say, so what happens? Then the pasuk says, right, Vayahas Kalev. Now we always translate Vayahas as silenced. The Gemara says Vayahas doesn't mean silenced. It means incite. Wow. Kalev incited the people. Okay, so I'll say obviously something happens between the first speech over here by the Meraglim and the incitement of Kalev. What happened? So I'll tell you what happened. Says the Gemara, Pasach Yoshua to Kamishtai. So we'll say Yoshua began to talk. Right? Yoshua obviously was going to give a rebuttal. Ultimately again to the statement of the Meraglim. So what happened? The people shot him down. Amrilei, Din Rosh Ketir Yimalel. Should the guy with the severed head go ahead and talk with us? So we'll say, now watch this, understand what does it mean severed head. So Rashi points out over here, if you look at Rashi, Dechazye, Kalev Yoshua Sharatz Ladare Vishisku. They silenced Yoshua ben Azifa with like a slap. Sha'amru va'amru lo Rosh HaKatua Yidaber Misha Rosh HaKatua She'ein lo banim lito chelek be'eretz hu yidaber b'fanenu. Yoshua didn't have sons. So they say, Yoshua, a chutzpah, be quiet. First of all, if we go into Eretz Yisrael, your sons are not going to fight in the army, right? You don't have kids who are going to fight in the army, and you don't really have skin in the game, because you're going to die, and you don't have sons to inherit the portion. So I'll say, I just want to point out something absolutely amazing. This is Yoshua. I will say, and this is something we have to be careful with ourselves. For whatever reason, the Ribbono Shel Olam programmed us with such a capacity for nastiness. And nastiness, even towards people who didn't do anything wrong. I will say, this is Yoshua. Yoshua is the heir apparent of Moshe Rabbeinu. And he's just trying to say, guys, let's talk about this. And what do? They shut him up. They silence him. And in such a nasty way. Who are you? Who is he? He's the guy who stands by Moshe. Lo yamosh mitocha oel. Yoshua never left the tent. He was always with Moshe Rabbeinu, always by his Rebbe's side, trying to take the reins, right? Ultimately being trained to take the reins of Klal Yisrael. But yet when people get scared, so I'll say really what it is, it's a lesson in fear. Right? When people get scared, they lose control. I'll say that's why one of the most important things when you face a scary moment of life is to take a deep breath and to steady yourself. Because if you don't do that, you run the risk of losing complete control. And it's control over your emotions, it's control over your speech, and you think things, and you say things, and you do things that you will later come to regret. Klal Yisrael was scared. And I will say, by the way, it makes sense they were, right? I want to be clear. It makes sense they were scared, right? Why does it make sense they were scared? Because at the end of the day, the Meraglim, who they respected, essentially came back and said, we can't do this. We can't do this. So what did they do? They panicked. So we'll say, so 2 lessons. Number 1, when you face a scary situation in life, don't panic. Take a deep breath, steady yourself, even though you don't know how you are going to deal with this. But whatever you do, don't react out of fear. Don't react out of panic. That's lesson 1. Lesson number 2, why? They're really tied together. Because if you do, then ultimately, again, everything runs amok. The human capacity for nastiness, unfortunately, again, is boundless. And if you react out of fear, you end up saying things and doing things that you truly regret. Incredible. So what happens? So Rabbi says, now watch this. So Kalev says, now Kalev just saw Yoshua silenced. Amar, imishta'ina, amri ki milsa v'chasmili. So if I try to go ahead and be the voice of reason, they're going to silence me like they did to Yoshua. So Amr Lahen, we'll say, watch this. So he said, we'll say, sometimes, so this was brilliant. So Kalev said, the only way they're going to listen to me is if they think that I'm part of the opposition. If they think I'm part of the Meraglim. So what does he do? So he says, Amr Lahen, he says to them, V'chizu bilvad asal me'aram. Guys, is this the first time that Moshe Rabbeinu has betrayed us? I will say, now, what happens when he says that? Oh, there's silence, right? Preach, right? In other words, there is silence, right? Everyone is ready to listen. So what I say, so now that he has everyone ready to listen, so Savri, Begnusa Kamishtai, Ishtiku, they thought that he was about to unload on Moshe Rabbeinu. So what did they do? They were all silenced. Amr Lam, so Yoshua, so Kalev, let me tell you what else Moshe did for us, or to us. He took us out of Egypt. He split the sea. He brought down the man. And if Moshe Rabbeinu tells us to make ladders, to go into the heavens, because that's where we have to fight, then that's what we're going to do. Then that's what we're going to do. Let us go up and inherit the land. And of course, the rest of the pasuk is Ki yachal nuchal Allah. Right? Ki yachal nuchal Allah. Ultimately, again, because we can do it. Ki yachal nuchal Allah. We can do it. And I will say, I'll just point out something amazing over here. So we need to start with that earlier. Let's listen to this. It's interesting, right? Because the Meraglim, remember, what do the Meraglim say? The Meraglim will say, to their credit, deliver a concrete report. Right? Let's talk about facts. Fact number 1, it flows with milk and honey. Great. Fact number 2, really strong people who live there. Fact number 3, fortified cities. Now, the mistake the Meraglim made was, as a result of all of these facts, our opinion is, we can't go in. How does Kalev counter this? Kalev counters this by saying, Alona aleh, let's go, ki achal nuchava, for we can do it. Now I will say, if you're sitting and you're looking at both sides of the argument, whose argument is more compelling? The Meraglim. Kalev is great. I love Kalev, right? But what does Kalev's argument sound? What is it? It's a pep talk. We can do this. Let's go, right? We can do this. It's a call to action. What does it lack? A concrete plan. So we'll say, the Piagetzna, asks, he says, Kalev, put forward a plan. If you want to be convincing, put forward a plan. And I will say, what's the answer? Kalev says, he doesn't have a plan. But I will say, sometimes in life, even when you don't have a plan, you still have to get it done. Sometimes in life, there are things that have to get done. And even though, again, they're overwhelming, and I don't know what the plan is right now, all I know is that the job has to get done. And there are moments in life where you just have to pledge yourself to succeeding, even though you don't know the pathway to success. That's what Kalev was saying. Guys, I don't know how we're going to do this. I don't know how to overcome all of these mighty nations. I don't know how to overcome all the fortified cities. But alon na'aleh, let's go. Ki achol nuchal la, because we can do it. And we have to do it. And sometimes in life, even when you don't know how to get the job done, you still have to roll up your sleeves and get to work. That's the Piazetzna. That's Kali Ben Yifuna. Incredible. So let's go back. Rabbi Chanina Bar Papa. Davar Gadol, Dibru Meraglim Bosasha. The Meraglim said something dramatic in that moment. Ki Chazaku Mimenu. I will say this now. I will say, the way we often translate that as Ki Chazaku Mimenu because they're stronger than us. Atikri Mimenu, Ela Mimenu. Don't say Mimenu, rather Mimenu. Mimenu also means Mu. Kivyachol, Afilu Balabayis, Inu Yochol Hotzi Kehila Misham. I will say, essentially what they were saying is, these nations are even stronger than HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Even stronger than God. Eretz Ocheles Yoshveha. We will say, watch this. What do the Meraglim say? It is a land. Eretz Canaan, Eretz Yisrael is a land which consumes its inhabitants. Darash Rava said, Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ani chashavti ala tova. Baruch Hu said, I will say, why did they say it's a land which consumes its inhabitants? So I will say, the Reuven Shalom is so frustrated. Reuven Shalom says, I tried to. I will say, you ever have a situation like this, maybe with your kids, right? You try to help, and not only do they not see the help, but they construe the help as something negative. Hey, all right, you're all young, okay, whatever. As you get older, you'll find. In other words, trying to help, trying to this, and then not only is it not understood, but like it's understood in the opposite way. So watch this. Listen to this. Ani chashav tova. What's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu do? T'chol heicha dematu meis chashiva dido ki heicha dinintridu v'lo l'shalo basrayu. Was wherever the Meraglim went, whatever place they stopped, HaKadosh Baruch Hu made it that someone important passed away, so that there would be a big levaya. Right? Why did he want a big levaya? They say people, the inhabitants would be occupied with the levaya, right? And ultimately would not pay any attention to the Meraglim. So it's for their benefit. What do the Meraglim see? It's in Eretz Ocheles Yoshvel. People are dying everywhere. The Ikad Army, others say, Eov nach nafshe. It was Eov who died. It was Eov who died. Vatride Kali, or I also remember again, going back in Sotah, where was Eov? Where was Eov originally? Little Chazar, where was he originally? Mitzrayim. He was one of Paro's advisors. Right? But he was the advisor ultimately again who remained silent in the face of the decrees. Apparently at some point in time he escapes Egypt and goes to Eretz Canaan. He died. He was obviously the Gadol Hadar in Canaan. And what happened? Ultimately again, and everyone was involved in his Levaya. Heim chashvu l'ra, Eretz Ocheles Yoshvahi. And I will say, they just totally misunderstood this ultimately again as a plague. I will say one of my favorite ideas, Zavi and I share a love for this same idea. Rabbi Nachman of Breslov says, what does it mean, Eretz Ocheles Yoshvahi? That Eretz Yisrael ultimately again is a land which consumes its inhabitants. Rabbi Nachman says, the beauty of Eretz Yisrael, see, you can go anywhere else in the world, right? And you could have a very nice experience, but yet remain detached from the geographic area, right? I can go to visit New York for the day, which don't do it, right? Let's say you wanted to do it, right? I can go, right? And I could go out to eat, and I could go to see this, and it's very nice. He'll say, do I suddenly feel a deep and profound attachment to New York? No. They will say, do you know what the greatness of Eretz Yisrael is? Rabbi Nachman says, Eretz Ocheles Yoshveha. It consumes you. The moment you step foot on its holy soil, it consumes you. It eats you up. Eretz Yisrael is not a place that you visit, and Eretz Yisrael is not even just a place where you live. Eretz Yisrael is a place where you become part of the land. You become part. It's Ocheles Yoshveha. It's a totally consuming experience from head to toe. The Rebbe says the Rambam didn't even understand. They thought that they were speaking disparagingly about the land. In fact, they were highlighting the holiest component of the land. Ocheles Yoshveha. It eats you, it consumes you, it takes over you from head to toe. Incredible. Let's weiter. Says the Gemara. Unehi beinenu kechagavim. V'chein we'll say, so now the Meraglim also said, we were like grasshoppers in our eyes, and so we were also like grasshoppers in their eyes. So Amar Rav Mesharshia, Meraglim shakri havu. The Meraglim were liars. How so? So bishlam unehi beinenu kechagavim l'chaye. So we'll say, I said, you want to make a statement that we were like grasshoppers in our eyes. That's fine. Because why? You could comment how you felt. Right? In other words, I feel like a grasshopper. Okay, so you feel like a grasshopper. That's fine. Ella But how can you comment about how someone else feels about you? Right? It's another profound Gemara, right? You can know how you feel. You can't know how other people feel about you. Right? I will say so often in life we project our feelings of ourselves onto others. Right? I assume that because I feel a certain way about myself, someone else feels that same way about me as well. And you cannot know how someone else feels. So you want to say, you felt like a grasshopper in your own eyes, fine. But you can't say you felt like a grasshopper or you were like grasshoppers in their eyes. How do you know that? So the Gemara says, you see, the Meraglim were liars. The Meraglim were liars. Velohi, maybe not. Velohi. Brother, what was happening? Ki marvi avili tu se arzi havu mavri. So let's listen to this. In Canaan, remember going back what we said before, there were a lot of levayas going on. That was for the benefit of the Meraglim. So the minimum in Canaan was when they would have the Suda after the levaya, they would come back, they would have a meal, and they would have what we call the Suda Sarva, the meal of consolation for the Avel, underneath the cedar trees. And I will say, what would happen? V'chi chazinu, when the Meraglim saw the people coming near them, what happened? They went up the trees. Salku, yaseh be'ilani. They went up in the trees. Shami dika amri chazinan inshi didamu lekimsi be'ilani. They overheard the indigenous nations saying, we see grasshoppers that look like people in the trees. So in other words, it could be very well that, remember that they did overhear the nations speaking about them, so they weren't making it up. Fine. So we'll say after hearing the report of the Meraglim, so the nation heard and they began to cry. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Osa Hayom, if you look, by the way, the Masoras Hashas changes this. It's not Osa Hayom, but it's rather Osa Laila Leil Tisha B'Av Haya. Rabbi say the night in which the people began to cry over the report of the Meraglim was the night of Tisha B'Av, the night of the ninth of Av. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hein Bachu B'chiyah Shalchinam, V'ani Ekva Lahem B'chiyah L'Doros. This is such a tragic statement. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Klal Yisrael, you cried for nothing. You cried for nothing. Unfortunately, now I will give you something to cry about. Which I will say, just to point out, this is not, it sounds like a punitive statement. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, it's not just simply a punitive statement. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying, if you're a people who doesn't recognize the brachos that you have, then there's clearly a lot of work to do. See, Rabbi say, sometimes in life, you don't appreciate the blessings you have until you lose them. And sometimes it takes a lot of loss in order to go ahead and really appreciate the brachos that you have. Kadosh Baruch Hu said to Klal Yisrael, which you've clearly demonstrated, is you don't appreciate what you've been given, and you don't appreciate what you have. And as such, it's going to take a long journey of difficulty and sadness for you to develop the proper midos to appreciate the beautiful brachos that I've conferred upon you. So it's not punitive, it's rehabilitative. Everything HaKadosh Baruch Hu does for us is not punitive. The Rebbe Shalom doesn't give punitive. I always mention this. This is why in Judaism, right, there is no such thing as a jail. Right? We don't believe in jailing people. Why? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu understood long before man did, which is putting people in a cell is not rehabilitative. We believe in rehabilitative punishment, not punitive punishment. So even this idea of making Tisha B'Av ultimately again into a day of crying was not punitive. It's all rehabilitative to make us into the kind of people who could appreciate what we have. So this is incredible, right? The nation wanted to go ahead and stone Moshe, Aaron, Kalev, Yoshua, Uksiv, Ukvod Hashem Nira Ba'al Moed. And then it says the honor of Hashem, glory of Hashem appeared by the Al Moed. Amar Rabbi Bar Abba, Malamed, Shenatlu Avanim V'Zacham Klape Mala. We'll say Kiviyachol, the people were ready to stone the Shechina. So we'll say what you see over here is something, it's tragic. It's tragic. What unfolded over here was not simply if they said we don't want to go into the land, that's one thing. But it escalated. It wasn't just about not going into the land. It was a full-out rebellion against Moshe, and in truth, a full-out rebellion against HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We'll say second wide line. We'll say the Meraglim died. The people who spoke ill of Eretz Yisrael died in a plague. Amar Rabbi Shimon Lakish, Shemesu Misa Meshuna. They died what we call a Misa Meshuna, an irregular death. Rabbi Chanina bar Papa, Darash Rav Shila Ish Kfar Tamrasa, Melame Shinishtarvav Lashonam, V'nafa Atiburam. Apparently their tongues became elongated, hung down until their stomach. And worms came out of their tongue and went into their stomach. So we'll say bad. It was bad. So the idea over here is obviously this misa mishuna. Again, why the tongue? Why the mouth? Because again, representing the lashon hara. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Amar ba Askara mesu. They died by Askara. We'll say, remember again, Askara. Askara is a type of death where ultimately, again, the airway constricts and the person dies through suffocation. Either way, it's the same metaphor, it's the same imagery, right? Which is that they spoke lashon hara, and as a result, their death ultimately comes about through their mouth. The Chayvan Sha'ala Achron should be so. We'll say back to the story. Incredible. We'll say we're jumping back and forth in Jewish history. So now back to the Yarden, right? Back to the crossing of the Jordan River. The Chayvan. We'll say first of the wide lines on the bottom. The Chayvan Sha'ala Harchon should be so many. I just say, by the way, I just want to point out, and I feel bad, I'm not doing this Agarata justice. I will say there is so much. Remember again, Agarata is not story time, right? It's not the pshat, tomorrow we'll have milk and cookies instead of coffee. I will say, it's not story time. I will say, remember again, Agarata is the way that Chazal imparted to us dramatic lessons. And they also understood that I will say people are much more receptive to lessons through stories, through anecdotes, through homiletic pieces, than they are often just through halacha. So that's why some of the most impactful life lessons are conveyed through Agarata. So again, I apologize. We're doing what we can, but please, fold down the page. Even if you're not chazering it tonight, just know at some point in time in life, these are Gemaras to come back to. Someone goes weiter. So after the last Jew got out of the Jordan River, the waters came back to there, right? The waters continued to flow. Shinemar, Va'iba alos hakohanim nosi Aron bris Hashem, mitoch hayarden nosku kapos ragli hakohanim ala harava, vayashuvu me hayarden limkoman. I will say ultimately again, so right, as soon as everybody got through, the Kohanim stepped out of the riverbed and the waters returned to where they were. Vayelchu kitmol shalshom al kol gidosav. Now I will say, I just want to point out to you what happened over here. So just to understand what occurred, right? Remember, who's in the front of the nation? Who's in the front of the nation? The Aron. Remember again, we saw even though the Aron normally traveled behind the flags of Yehuda and Reuven, on the day they crossed the Jordan River, the Aron was in front. Who was carrying the Aron? Kohanim. Excellent. Even though normally who carried the Aron? Leviim. So I will say, so just to understand what happened. Kohanim walk into the riverbed. What happens when they walk into the riverbed? Sea stops flowing. I'm not going to use the word split because it didn't really split, right? It stops flowing. Wall of water builds up. The Kohanim stood right there by the eastern bank of the Jordan River. Right? What happens? Everyone begins to go ahead and walk through. As soon as the last person was, what did the Kohanim do? The Kohanim took a step back onto the eastern border of the Jordan River, and the water began to flow. Says the Gemara, we have a problem. What's the problem? So both say it turns out that the Kohanim are on the eastern side of the Jordan, and Klal Yisrael is on the western side. Because we'll say it turns out that for whatever the reason, we'll see in just what the reason was, when everybody got through, they took a step backwards. Klal took a step backwards. So they're on the eastern shore, Klal Yisrael is on the western shore, and now what? The Jordan is flowing regularly. So now what are we going to do? So we'll say get ready for this. So a miracle happened. Nasa Aron es nosav. The Aron carried the Kohanim. Shene Emar vahi kasher tam kol ha'am lavar vayavar Aron va'kohanim lifnei ha'am. So we'll say so incredible. This is the concept of Aron noses nosav. The Aron carried the carriers. Now watch this. We'll explain in just a moment. The al davar zeh ne'enash Uzzah. Uzzah was punished. Now remember again. This is talking about the story where David HaMelech was moving the Aron to Yerushalayim. So we'll say, so what happened? Shneimar, vayavo ad goren kidon, vayishlach Uzzah es yadav. So we'll say, so just to frame this, they had the Aron on a wagon, which was not good to begin with, right? But they had the Aron on a wagon. So what happens? The wagon hits some bumps. The Aron moved. Uzzah reaches out his hand to steady the Aron. But say, as a result, what happened? Vayishlach is Uzas Yadol Lechol Zes Ha'aron. Amar La Kadosh Baruch Hu says, Uzzah, no sav no say atzma lo kol shekin. Kadosh Baruch Hu said to Uzzah, the Aron carried the Kohanim across the Jordan. The Aron could take care of itself. Vayichar af Hashem be'Uzzah, vayakeu sham al hashal. Uzzah died. Uzzah died right there as a result of having touched the Aron. Rabbi Lazar Amar Chad Amar al Iskei Shalo, V'Chad Amar Asha Asat Tzracha B'Fanav. Some say again, Uzzah died ultimately because he was acting disrespectfully in the presence of the Aron, either because, he was checking his email, right, he was going ahead and, taking care of business, or he defecated in the presence of the Aron. Vayamas Sham Im Aron Elokim. He died right there with the Aron. But just before we go on, I just want to point out something amazing. Right, so here we have, the Gemara tells us, so the concluding miracle of the Jordan River story, the Yarden story is, the Aron itself took the Kohanim across the river. So let's say, the Ben Ish Chai says, why was this miracle necessary? Right? In other words, let's say, it seems so strange. Instead, what should have happened? If you were scripting the miracle, how would you have scripted the miracle? How would you script the miracle? Klal Yisrael goes through, then what? The Aron and the Kohanim go through. Instead, they're on the ground, take a step backwards, take a step backwards onto the eastern bank, the water comes down, and now the Aron carries the Kohanim across. The Ben Ish Chai says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was trying to teach Klal Yisrael an eternal lesson. Torah will carry you. Torah will carry you through life. Klal Yisrael needed to see Aron nosei es nosav, that the Aron carries those who carry Torah. Rabbi will say spirituality, Torah, specifically Torah, has an ability to carry us over the turbulent waters of life. As David HaMelech says, Lulei sorascha sha'ashuai, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, were it not for your Torah, the beauty, the delight of your Torah, as avadati ba'ani, I would have been lost in the difficulties of life. It will say Torah anchors us. Torah steadies us. And according to today's Gemara, Torah carries us. And most importantly, when does it carry us? Over the rivers, right? Over the turbulent bodies of water, over the difficulties and challenges of life. Torah is always there to help steady you, to help carry you, to help take you from one point to another. I will say an incredible Gemara. Let's go weiter. So the Gemara goes weiter. So the Gemara says, fine. Amar Belazar, Amar Yochanan, Uzzah bali olam haba. Despite Uzzah having died because he touched the Aron, he still went to olam haba. How do you know this? So the Gemara says, Shneimar Aram Elokim. He died with the Aron. Ma Aron Olam, just as the Aron exists forever. Af Uzzah bali olam haba. So too Uzzah has olam haba as well. So even though he made a mistake, Rabbi was saying, he still went to olam haba. Vayichar leDavid al Hashem paras Hashem paras Uzzah. So Rabbi said, David HaMelech was very upset. David HaMelech was very upset about the death of Uzzah. He felt that it was unjust and unfair. Because at the end of the day, all Uzzah was trying to do was look out for the kavod of the Aron. So David was very upset. Amar Lazar, shenishtanu panav kecharara. David HaMelech, his face became blackened. He became very upset, like the bottom of a loaf of bread. So Ella me'ata kol hecha dichsiv vayichar hachanami. So I'll say, so does that mean every single time it says vayichar means the face becomes blackened? Hasim ksiv hach af. Hachalo ksiv af. Fine, it doesn't say af. Okay, fine. Amar Rava. After Ashrava. Mipnei man ne'enash David. I will say, why was David punished? So I will say, it appears that the death of Uzzah was considered to be a punishment to David HaMelech. So why? I will say, you have to understand something. Also, David is trying to bring, his whole goal is to bring the Aron to Yerushalayim, right? His whole goal is to go ahead and bring the Aron to a proper home. Not building the Beis HaMikdash, but he is building a structure. So why was David HaMelech punished? Why being supposed to say, watch this? So the Gemara says, Mipnei shekar divrei Torah Zmiros. Because David HaMelech, he called Torah Zmiros. Everybody say, what's Zmiros? A song. Shenei Amar, Zmiros hayulichu kecha bebeis migurai. Amar la Kadosh Baruch Hu. So Kadosh Baruch Hu says, David HaMelech divrei Torah shekasav bahen hisif einecha bo ve'einenu. You know how it works with Torah? If you blink, it goes away. We know this, right? The whole Chapa Torah is not just learning it. The whole Chapa Torah is continuity. Continuity. Day after day. As Rabbi Gedalia said at the Siyum, right? It's not the Daf, it's the Yomi, right? Day after day after day. The continuity. I am committed to something. You blink, also, you know how it works with Ruchnius? You blink for a second, and everything you acquired is gone. So that thing which if you blink for a second, it's gone. Ata korin osa zmiros. Ultimately, David HaMelech, you're calling it zmiros Shabbosai. So he says, Harini machshulcha b'davar shafilu tinoka shabes rabban yodin. David, I'm going to show that you're going to make a mistake with something that is so obvious that even children know about it. They will say, what's the obvious thing that even children know about? They will say, listen to this. The aron is not put on a wagon. The aron is the one utensil that is never put on a wagon. The aron is always carried by hand, out of deference to the sanctity of the kli. And yet, what did David HaMelech do? What did he do? He put it on a wagon. And because he put it on a wagon, that's why Uzzah died, because Uzzah ultimately saw the turbulence of the wagon and almost like instinctively or reflexively went ahead and put his hand out. So this was a punishment for David HaMelech for calling Divrei Torah Zmiros, a song. I will say, we have to stop over here for today. Don't worry. I only had intention to do Amud Aleph. Right? This is it. So it's perfect. I wanted to stop right here. I will say, we're fine. We're going to start a little bit earlier tomorrow, Mir Hashem. But tomorrow we are going to start. I will say, why it is so bad to call Divrei Torah Zmir. So I want to just tell you, coming attractions, we are going to see a Marsha that is absolutely life-altering. So that's what we're going to begin tomorrow. Shir will say, we're perfect, we're wonderful, we're right on schedule. I apologize that we didn't even get through enough. Shkoyach.
Considered a natural human reaction?